It was really good. It was only like 3 days away, or 3 nights, but it
Yeah.
was just perfect. It's amazing what you can do with your time. It was really good. Yeah, perfect. It just needed that.
Yeah. So you're
It
well
had,
rested.
we don't just sit around just wasting time, so we, get things done. But it's but just being out with nature again and
Mm.
just doing all the things that, we enjoy doing with the hiking. And yeah, it's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important for our energy system to do nothing.
No,
We need that.
definitely.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need that sometimes to do absolutely nothing. And yeah, so nice to hear that you had a good holiday.
Yeah, that's how I get my energy restored, just by going out away from everyone and just being amongst nature. And yeah, it's just lovely.
Mm.
Yeah. How's your week been?
And some difficult cases or sessions that I had to do with some clients, so I needed some downtime after that. I think one of the misconception about my work, or maybe even your work, is that we can take on like many clients all at one go. Like we pack our schedule, we see clients back to back, that sort of a thing. But actually, no, we need a lot of downtime, at least in my work, because when people come in with trauma, with stuff, right, and when we're sitting with the client, the energies actually do run through us as well. So having that buffer, right, that space between sessions is very important. So it's not healthy to have back-to-back sessions, and downtime is so necessary. So I do.
It's interesting you
So
should say that, because I was only just talking about this yesterday. I had a massage, and it was just funny when the right people come into your life to give you a message. But it also worked both ways. And I was having a bit of trouble with my foot and a few other little complications, but and she said, "Oh, Alina, that's right in your adrenal gland." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, we're thinking about that, and I'm not surprised considering the
mm,
amount of workload." And she said, "You look at, because we're talking about creating boundaries, and also the type of work that we do is just energy giving all the time." And talking, the back to back. And I was saying how I would see, 10 clients, in 7 hours, 7 or 8 hours, and they're just back to back to back. And she said, yes. And then you finish work, you have a bit of lunch, you have something to eat, and then you turn around and with your second job and you give more because you're at the front desk. Hi, welcome.
yeah,
How can I help
yeah.
you? All those sorts of things. And so she said, what do you do for your downtime? And
Mm.
what brings you joy? And I went, oh, I don't know. So we were just talking about things like that. It's not because we were getting older. It's different. It's a different time in our life at the
Yeah,
moment. See, when we were younger, we had to find a way, and we did. We were bringing up families. We're doing lots of different things, but also our energy system was different. Whereas, hormones play a big part in things as well. So we're not,
yeah,
rah, 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 and nor do we have to be that way.
yeah.
So we still give out a lot, but we still have to replenish. And I think that timing of our life is just, it's sort of like it's a natural thing, a natural transition, because when we're young, we had the energy, and it's not because we felt more energized, it's our bodies are different.
Yeah.
And whereas when we're older, we're able to sort of streamline things a lot easier, and then to have that downtime because we've got more time to do it as well. And I think just listening to yourself, is really important. And I didn't get that downtime, quite a few months ago. Normally I'll have a few days buffer where I'd go away and, just be with nature for a bit. But with my partner having, cancer and going through all the treatment at the time, we just couldn't do anything like that. So
Yeah.
I just continued to work. But I really paid the price for it.
Uh,
You
yeah.
think you're okay. And it's not so much I'm just going to do nothing. It's just disconnected from
Yeah.
the giving
Yeah.
and the attention. Yeah, and it's a
Yes.
really hard thing to do because, it does catch up with you,
It
at
does.
some point.
Yeah. And also, I think as we get older, we become more sensitive. When we're young, we're not so aware, we're not so sensitive to how the giving can drain us. And so we may just, be giving, giving, giving. But then when we get older, we're a little bit more sensitive. I think we're a lot more discerning. And then we can tell, like, okay, this is the point where I have to say no. This is the point where I have to push my appointments. Like last month, I had this client who wanted me to do a house call. And I said no. I said, I have to give this house call thing a break. And because I know that the house calls do take up more energy from me, because I have to go into a new space, I have to set up the space, I have to, and then be there. It's just different, right? Because I don't have the support system that I have in my space. It's much more draining. I had to say no and postpone it. And, the client is, thank goodness, she's very understanding. We become much more discerning, I think. Yeah. In
Definitely.
how we are using our energies.
And it's interesting because I've always taught, nutrition. It teaches people how to do it effectively. The other day to my partner when we're away, and I said, I'm not doing the nutrition this year. It's just like, it's not, I don't put it out there because I said, I just don't have the energy for it.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of questions and then there's lots of things, but there's also a lot of, you explain the answer to them in the best way that suits them.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly just having to access this reservoir all the time. And I just said, no, I haven't really, I don't want to do it this year because I just don't have the energy for it. I'll pick it up again. We'll do it. It's always there. But it's like, where they say your energy flows where your focus goes. And it's so true. It's just because it's not that I don't want to do it. I just don't have the energy for it at the moment.
It's the same as, when I used to give 15-minute consult before the actual therapy starts or the coaching, right? And to see whether we're a right fit. I used to do that, and I realized that the people who often want the freebie, the consult, will not sign on to become an actual client. And what it becomes is an energy draining exercise, because then they spend all this time talking about the problems. They just want to offload. They say, oh, what do you think? Then I have to engage, right? First I have to hold space for them to spill. And then I have to engage. I have to put them to a stop because they can go on and on. They won't stop at 15 minutes. It's just a difficult exercise, and I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I mean, if you don't, and usually I just direct them to my videos on YouTube. If you don't like what you see there, you don't like what I do there, then don't come to me. I know this is a thing that lots of coaches do, especially in my line of work. It may work if I am charging tens of thousands of dollars package, then it's worth the time. But no, I'm not doing packages, so I scrapped that completely, and that changed my whole business. I'm much happier because I know that now people who come are truly people who want to heal, right? And that makes me happier. That makes them happier. It makes the work a lot more worthwhile. Totally get what you're saying. When people say, oh, can I have a coffee with you? I want your point of view, I said, you know what? The coffee is too cheap. Don't buy me coffee, pay me for a session.
It's like anything, just human nature. People will constantly take until you tell them to stop or create that boundary. And I think as we get older, we're more confident to make those boundaries as well, because we know what we don't want a lot clearer at our age to compared to, say, even 20 years ago. And, also too, you don't want to offend other people. And whereas now, because we've, been in the line, for quite some time, we believe in what we do. And, we can sit back and, we know all the people that we've helped, over the years. And, that doesn't just come, that happens over time. It was an exercise that I had to do many years ago and through a coaching mentor, and we had to rate our clients A, B, and C. A being, the absolutely gold star clients. B, you don't have to give them any, they're easy to coach and they're coachable. B, they're committed, but sometimes they have a little bit of, slip ups now and then. And then there's the C, the ones that you got to spend a lot of time with to nurture. And anyway, I worked out that I probably had most of my clients were either A or B. right? But I had a handful of C. But I found that I spent more time in my C's, trying to, and more of my energy trying to, reassure them and all this other stuff. They were a bit demanding. So then obviously I would, give them more of my time. Instead of the A's and B's that were just sitting over here because they were easy.
Yeah.
And I was told to get rid of the C's,
Yeah.
to divorce them.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can't do that. Now I have no problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, when you think about it, there's so many people that just get on and they know what they're after. Like, I'm very coachable. I'm not demanding of when I work with someone. I'm there to learn because they're the expert. I've come to them to learn. And, there's times I'll go through struggles like that's normal, but I still want to help myself. I'm not, accessing their energy and just pulling them down all the time. So, it's a really good, win-win. So I'm really aware of that. But there's some people out there that will just suck the life out of it, as you would know.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I don't put myself in that situation anymore because there's only so much energy to give.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then I found, like, when my father passed away, and I hadn't had a holiday for like 7 years or so. And I said, I would never do that again. I mean, I couldn't afford it. Plus my children were younger. So that meant if we went away, I would have to pay all adult. And so this time, when I did go away, I went, oh my God, I'm never going to do that again, because it just from an energetic point. And I was in a different position then because, both of them had left home. And, so I had a little bit extra money and going away didn't mean going away to resorts or anything like that. It could just be like what we've just done, a couple of days away in the mountain. But it was like getting away to reconnect. And it's interesting because I found then a lot of my clients then were really important because I was kind of walking my talk as well. So, well, you've got to restore your energy. You've got to be able to do the things that, to top your energy levels up. Mine's going into nature. I just get away from everyone and everything. That's the way I restore. So then I've got the energy to give, but I can't give what I don't have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think that's really important, as we get older, too, because we naturally want to give all the time. They just can't access that reservoir all the time. There's only a privileged people, who you work with and, who really need that work. And and it's okay to, to finally, acknowledge that. Whereas 20 years ago, it'd be different.
At the beginning, early days of my practice, right, of what I do as a spiritual person, we always feel obligated to give free sessions to people who can't afford it. Oh my God, those were the worst. Those were the most demanding. And after a free session, not only do they complain, they don't do the work, and then they blame the failure, inverted commas, on you because they say that you're not good and that's why they can't heal. So, then I stopped all that, it's like, no freebies. I'm sorry, we're not a right fit if you can't afford it. And also, those people who want to bargain, right? People who bargain, that's also very tiring because then you tell them that, well, can I give you less energy, to do the work or hold space for you less? It doesn't work that way. Right. So they think that the job is just like, for us, is like we know our work so well. So all we need to do is just be there and just listen. It's so much more than that. So much more, and the energy work, energetically, the connection, the holding space, the listening, and all that takes up a lot of energy. And people don't realize that.
No, that's interesting too. And I think also too, for the people listening with us as well, I'm sure they've found themselves in, many situations that it might not be a line of work. It could also be friendships and family and anything that, I think that's the hardest. And I remember years and years ago, I was reading Denise Lynn and it was feng shui for the soul, right? And okay, so there was some take-home bits in her book I found really interesting, and it was like back in the day when we used to fill our wall with family photos and things like that. And and if you walked past this photo that makes you cringe all the time, get rid of the photo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I thought, Oh, that's just so good. And so I thought, yeah. So, and I remember that was a real eye opener. And I probably would have been, say, maybe 30, 31 when I was reading that book. And yeah, I've never really sort of stopped to think about it until then because, we're just busy at a different time of our life as well. And yes, I had two young children at the time, but I don't know, it was just different. I was just more susceptible to what was around me from an energetic point. And, they used to say, they're energy suckers all the time. But, I clearly remember like, I had a really good, like loving, supporting, friends and things like that, and my family was good too. But I wasn't in a situation of conflict all the time. So I did have that with one of my sisters, and I just chose not to react. And I just chose not to speak to her because I didn't like the way that she operated,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that's another story, another time. That's all in my book. But it's avoiding those situations where that, where your energy is just going to be totally absorbed all the
Yeah.
time. Like sometimes you might be in a situation where you might have friends or families, and this is where your expertise would come in way more than mine. Mine's just on, just general experience. But like I'm sure there's people there that are in a situation where they're just constantly being accessed all the time, where they're
Yeah.
expected to give. So, what advice would you give to our listeners that might find themselves in a situation where they can't just get rid of the photo, so to speak?
Okay, we call these things energy vampires, right?
But there's some people in your life who has that one family member,
Oh,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they can't
Um,
exactly just ignore.
yeah. Well, I would say the boundary that I personally create is to spend less time. But if there is an obligation, for example, like you're taking care of an elderly relative, elderly parent who may be, energy vampire, then you keep it to the minimum. You keep it once a week. You keep it, make sure that there is a time limit, because you must know where your threshold is. You can't allow the feeling of like, oh, I'm obligated, I should do this, I should do that. Find other ways to keep an eye on them. Like personally, I have CCTV installed my parents' home so that I can keep an eye on them. But it doesn't mean I have to spend so much time. I go once a week just to make sure that things out, but it is very, very energy draining, right? Obviously, they have no awareness that it has that kind of an impact on us, but so I keep it to the minimum. I do my due diligence. I do what I need to do. And then I say, okay, I need to go. So I go. And so my advice is that there is obligation, family members. Yes, you do what you need to, but you make sure you set a time. You have to remind yourself, right? And the other thing also is when you are around like family or, people who are toxic in general, don't engage. Talk about the weather. Don't share your stuff. Good things, bad things, don't share. Don't share anything that is personal to you. Don't share anything that's intimate to you, because these toxic people are going to use it against you. It's a matter of time. It will come up and they will use it against you. And then you beat yourself up and you say, why did I tell them that? So don't keep the conversation shallow. Sadly, it has to be that way. Talk about the weather, talk about unimportant things, and it becomes meaningless, but you are fulfilling an obligation that otherwise you would not be there. So just do
Yeah.
that, keep the energy exchange to a minimum.
I think we've all come across or even still have, people in the family who are what I call them negative Nancy's. And, when you're younger, sorry, I've got a word for everything. And, but, it depends on the family dynamics as well, because, sometimes you can't be rude to them, and
Yeah,
sometimes you can't, it's not your place to be rude, particularly if they're
yeah,
an older person as well.
yeah,
And, I will have a lot of this with my in my line of work, as far as when people are going through their transformations, and I've said to them, that because they've always got something negative to say, these people are experiencing really, great changes that, that they've never experienced. So it's not just transforming like their weight, it's their mindset, it's everything. And a lot of these people are, really quite envious because it's a reflection of what they don't have themselves. And I try and say that, to clients. I said, you'll never get someone who's feeling really good about themselves put you down. If anything, they would just hold your hand and just encourage you and applaud you along the way, because they know what it's like, So these negative Nancy's and things like that, they're all people that are just trying to, drain you, bring you down and just try and drain it, because they're not happy themselves, and so I said, which is fine. That's their problem. You don't need to take that on. This is about you. And I think you get a little bit more confident in just being who you are as you get a little bit older too, because I would never have said anything like what I say now. And I'm not rude, but, I'm not afraid of bringing it up and just, addressing it straight away, whereas I would never have said that, I look at my daughter now and, she's very professional, with what she does, and she's in, the people industry. And, and I've thought I was exactly the same when I was younger. I wonder what she'll be like in, say, 30 years' time. When she's had enough and go, look, I'm over this. I think she'll still be very polite. And I mean, I'm polite too, but I'm not scared in coming forward, or saying, I don't like that. So, but sometimes people just aren't in that situation. And I find that if I'm in that negative environment, I just feel totally drained. So, like what you said, you just try not to put yourself in that situation, that much.
It's so important not to set ourselves up. And people who are empathetic, you are the giver type of person, inevitably you'll find yourself in situations where you're always setting yourself up, and then you regret it after that. And then there's this self-blame and all of that, right? So to stop yourself from spiraling out, just say no, right? Be assertive about it. Like you said, you don't have to be rude. You can be polite about it. It may not go down well on, people who are toxic, who are people who are demanding. They may not perceive you being assertive as being assertive. They may see that you are being rude, but that's not your problem, right? You don't have to try to save them or try to be in their good books. You don't need that, right?
No. And I think it's just it forms a bit of respect there as well, because it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I will normally say, I know you also, for people that would know me, I would say, you know me so well, and I say this with my hand on my heart, but I can't do this, I'm really sorry. And I'll go, oh, okay. Whereas if I would say, in a really rude way, that would be quite offensive. But then if I'm dilly-dallying around it, they still wouldn't get the message.
Exactly. You have to be quite direct sometimes, right? Because they may not even get it. They won't know where you're coming from.
No, that's right. And I think, that saying, oh God, you would have heard it so many times, the brighter your light is, the more you attract.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't have to let everyone inside.
Exactly. I was telling this client of mine, right? I mean, she was struggling a little bit with mental health and almost at the point of like wanting to give up. And I told her that, you know what, your saving grace is that you have a spiritual practice. It is your spiritual practice that is keeping you going, despite all the challenges that you're facing, despite, the inner demons and all of that. You haven't given up. And it's because, and part of the reason why you feel like you're being attacked a lot on a psychic level is because of the light. So it's a good thing, and sometimes not a good thing, right? But you have to, that light inside you is the hope that's going to keep you going. Do whatever we can, right, in the physical world to mitigate the situation, to make it more livable and more comfortable. But at the end of the day, the hope that she has to hold on to is really the light inside, and know that she's on the right track, despite being in such a difficult situation and feeling so overwhelmed constantly. It's not easy. It's
No,
not easy.
definitely. And, because like I still will go through things. I mean, we all do, but I also know I recognize that when I'm really tired, like it really shifts your perception of everything as well. So, and then it just has a real snowball effect, and then all that negative, energy can start to come in. Obviously the answer is, well, more of the point is that why are you tired? So it's not just, I'll go to bed early. It could be lots of different things that are happening. And, accessing the energy all the time, your energy system is one huge, big, factor of mine. And because I can recognize that when I start to see things differently, I know that I'm tired because I know I would not normally, look at things like that. And then you've got to watch it because sometimes it can snowball into effect where resentment sets in,
Oh yeah.
and then it just like, let's just rag everything with it. So it's trying to wind it back to find out what the trigger points are.
Yeah.
And so, it's easier said than done. Go to bed early, do this, do that. And it's not, because that's not everyone's life.
Yeah.
I try and maintain. It's just by me going to bed early, it's not going to fix my problem.
Yeah.
What's helped my situation is what we're talking about initially, is just making sure that you don't overextend yourself. You still got, you still need to replenish, restore. And what that means for other people, like that's an entirely, personal decision, but I know what works for me. And I remember my uncle, my mum's brother, said to me years and years ago when I was in my early 20s, he said, Lena, you need to spend at least 10 minutes of nature, 10 to 20 minutes of nature every day, even if it's just taking your shoes off and feeling the barefoot, like the grass, or being out in the garden. I go, oh, I don't have time for that. And I mean, I loved, like nature, but my love for nature has grown over time, and it's like, feeding a thirsty plant, like, the drier I am, the more thirst I have, I just know what I need. But it was just learning to recognize the signs, of tiredness.
Time to say goodbye for today. And we'll see you all again next week. This is Shamala from Singapore signing out.
And Alina Anderson from Queensland, Australia, signing out as well.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
See you.
Then we just send the links to people that we know. Like, go watch this, give us a like.
Yeah.